Hello, welcome to the Basics of Buddhism course. This is Gayatri and we'll be beginning lesson 2 today, the Triratna. But first, a prayer which I'll be repeating thrice. Sang-gye cho-dang, tsog-kyi, cho-nam-laI, Jang-chub dag-ni kyab-su-chiUntil, dag-gi, jin-sog, gyi-pe, so-nam-kyiBy, Dro-la, pan-chir, Sang-gye, drub-par-shog. Sang-gye cho-dang, tsog-kyi, cho-nam-laI, Jang-chub dag-ni kyab-su-chiUntil, dag-gi, jin-sog, gyi-pe, so-nam-kyiBy, Dro-la, pan-chir, Sang-gye, drub-par-shog. Sang-gye cho-dang, tsog-kyi, cho-nam-laI, Jang-chub dag-ni kyab-su-chiUntil, dag-gi, jin-sog, gyi-pe, so-nam-kyiBy, Dro-la, pan-chir, Sang-gye, drub-par-shog. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit I have accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Today we'll be studying the Triratna, also known sometimes as the Ratnatraya. The Triratna in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism is symbolized by a 3-branch rounded shape, kind of like the Hindu trishul. So what are the Triratna? They are the 3 jewels, also known as the triple gem. They are in essence the 3 locations in which we take refuge, or the spaces in which one may surrender in order to receive the teachings. Refuge is generally taken thrice. One mundane reason for this is because in times of oral traditions, repeating thrice helps students commit prayers and studies to memory. But even today, oral transmission is followed as a rule, as it is supposed to be the purest and most undiluted form of receiving knowledge or empowerment directly from a teacher. One of the first entry points into the teachings of the Buddha, whichever school of Buddhism you may follow, is this taking of refuge. There are various versions of it. You might already be familiar with Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. One of the most beautiful places to listen to these chants is if you sit in the garden of the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya in the evenings. You might have heard it at the start of a Vipassana meditation course, or indeed before receiving empowerments and teachings from any of the great teachers and lamas. The version that I used at the start of this lesson is in Tibetan and is commonly used in Vajrayana Buddhism. Taking refuge in these 3 aspects of Buddhism is often referred to as taking refuge in the triple gem or in the Triratna. So what does it mean to take refuge? At the basic level, at the gross level, the reference to the Buddha is considered to be the form of the great teacher himself, but also we take refuge in the forms of the Buddhas before him and after Shakyamuni Buddha. So at the basic level, the reference to the Dharma is considered to be the body of his teachings, basically the collected works of the Buddha. And at the basic level, the Sangha is understood as the community of practitioners. In this gathering, among people who think like me and seek like me and who teach like me, I take refuge in the teachings and in the teachers, right? So that's the level which we generally understand it. But Vajrayana Buddhism also requires us to take refuge in 3 internal roots, tsa, sum, or of the external gems. Now, let me explain this to you as with a simple example of trees. Let's say there are 3 trees under which you are taking shelter. But each tree has an unseen root that makes it strong and safe for us to shelter under. What are these 3 roots? These 3 become the Lama or the Guru. And this is the root for the Buddha. This is also known as a root of blessings. The Lama is one who is considered one with the Buddha himself and has already walked the path and attained the realization that you are seeking. The principle of Buddhahood is that there were many Buddhas before Gautama the Buddha and many after. And so the Lama becomes the living and present example of the fact that enlightenment is attainable. He's skilled, accomplished, and has been a recipient and a sort of a holder of the direct transmissions or teachings of the Buddha, and is therefore the bridge between you and them being both the teacher and his teachings. His blessings unlock and supervise with care your passage of learning and study. The second root is the Yidam. The Yidam is the root of accomplishment. And in Vajrayana Buddhism, the Yidam represents the deity. Deities in Buddhism are considered both secular and non-secular. There may be kings who are worshipped as gods, there may be gods of nature, or gods of existence in the world, and so on. The Lama is considered to be in communication with the deity. It closely resembles what in Hinduism is sometimes referred to as an Ishtadevata. These deities may be propitiated to bind the practice, to ask them for protection, to guide one's wavering mind back to the practice. They also represent the level of achievement in practice that one may aspire to attain. Okay, so typically you will choose, or your Lama may assign you a deity that is very dear to your heart and who then represents the way. Typically, a Yidam will have a mantra or a syllable, what we call the Bij mantra in Hinduism. So to have a Yidam is to be initiated by a Lama into a way of practice. And in this way, the Lama guides you to the Yidam, which is a direct manifestation of the path. The third root is the Khandro, which comprise of the Dharmapala or Dakini. The Dakinis being female and the Dharmapalas being male protectors. Think of them like yoginis, right? And again, they are secular and non-secular, Dharmapalas and Dakinis, and their aim is to get you to realization. And they are invoked to remove both internal and external obstacles. And they use the sensory objects to create a state of joy and sort of bind you to the practice. So we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha at the basic level, at the external level, and it creates in us a sense of allegiance, a belonging to a school of thought and study. So we're basically saying we surrender our disbelief. Why should we do this? So there's an important saying in Zen Buddhism, which is, to gain the Buddha, you have to be the Buddha. And what does this mean? Yes, there is one aspect of it that says you have to fundamentally believe that you're capable of Buddhahood. But also, when you are starting a line of study, you have to suspend disbelief. You have to adopt the ideology, and you have to think like and see like the person whom you are trying to understand or their teachings. This does not mean that you do not question or that you do not adopt that which is ludicrous or wrong, or that you have blind faith. The Buddha's teachings of not adopting a line of thought that you are not convinced by still holds. Okay? You are required to question everything you're studying. However, if you're just randomly questioning everything, there is no point of the study. In order to be convinced, you have to assume the point of view of one who wants to believe. So, a scientist may be performing an experiment and he does not know for sure if the experiment is going to give him the result that he thinks it will. But he has to fundamentally believe that there is a result possible. He has to believe there's a chance in taking this line of experimentation, right? That's what is the point. Why launch rockets into space if you just don't believe anything is out there? You may be searching for aliens, and the first time you meet an alien, you'll be like, I don't think you exist. You have to first hope there is something out there in order to find it. By all means, explore the unknown, question the unknown, tap it, see whether it's firm and sure. But if you don't fundamentally believe that there is something out there in the unknown to find, you're wasting your time going there. So you may say, oh no, we have evidence of stars and planets that are observable from Earth. That's why we're sending rockets out there. We've tested it first. Yes, but they could be illusions. If you want to follow your skepticism, follow it fully. So why bother? Also, you're following a hunch, an instinct, taking a calculated guess based on what is observable. Right? And that is also the path of knowledge that spiritual inquiry follows. You have seen something beyond the veil. You have an instinct for it. You have a hunch that it is there. When you take refuge for the first time, you may not know the exact shape and form of the truth. But you have to suspend disbelief in its reality for long enough in order to inquire into it. Taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha means you are willing to give yourself resources, shelter, community, faith, trust, a line of teaching. You're saying, okay, lead me, let me see where this goes. You're willing to seek protection and guidance while you embark on this path. Refuge is not conversion, it's not a retreat from a worldly path, it's not blind faith, it's not even committing to be an unquestioning student. It is simply undertaking a quest willingly with the mind and heart of a true seeker, a real, gripping, wanting to know, wanting to be shown, and living among these ideas that in time will begin to reveal their truths to you with the faith that they will. At the base level, we take refuge in the form of the Buddha Shakyamuni. But we are also taking refuge at a subtle level in the Buddha nature, in his Buddha nature and our own Buddha nature, in the one who is awakened as a symbol of our own potential for awakening. We are attesting to our faith in the full luminosity of our mind and our ability to reach it. When we take refuge in the Dharma, we are not only committing to the path of ideology or the philosophy, the collected works of the Buddha, but in the willingness to put trust in the path one is following. Let me explain this with an example. S.N. Goenka, in his Vipassana course recordings, gives the example of a businessman who comes to the Buddha and asks why he should trust his teachings. Why can't he just grant people liberation with a wave of his hand, right, if he's so enlightened? The Buddha looks at him and observes that he is a businessman. He says to him, you must be traveling between Rajgir and Varanasi. The man says, yes, I go every week. The Buddha says, then you must know the way. And the man says, yes, if you go left here, right there, through the forest here, up the mountain there, follow the river, you will reach Varanasi. So the Buddha says, can you travel the path for me? And the man says, how can I travel the path for you? At best, I can give you a road map. The Buddha smiles. He says, similarly, I cannot walk the path for you, but since I have been traveling ahead, I can tell you the way. This trust in the roadmap by a traveler who has gone ahead is the refuge in Dharma. The Sangha is the community of fellow travelers. We each travel the path alone on our own leg of the journey, but we don't have to go it alone. And the reason for this is fundamentally the interconnection of all beings. in the simplest way possible. None of us makes it alone. We may think we know so much. We do all these things that we do, all our achievements, our accomplishments. But nothing that we know we have learnt alone. A parent taught it to us, a teacher, a coach, a sibling, a fellow traveler. An experience that was the outcome of interactions with other beings and circumstances. Everything we think we do alone and independently, we only achieve by the participation in this world, with others, amongst others. When we start traveling the spiritual path, we acknowledge the role, even if it is silent, that the collective plays. So at the gross earthly level, it is the Sangha, it is the other monks or seekers that you're sitting amongst, right? Also the Bodhisattvas, Buddhas who have gone ahead, who are, sending back the roadmap. But at the subtle level, it is collective energy, it is wisdom, it is virtue, it is compassion, it is kindness, it is support, it is encouragement that allows us to make our way. Even the farmer in the field who grows the rice that you eat for lunch, between your meditations, that gives you the ability and bodily strength to get back to your practice, is your fellow Sangha member. The bus driver who took you to school when you were a child to enable you how to, learn how to read and write, is your Sangha member. This is why the teachers say, if you take refuge, you're never alone. It is this witnessing of and participating in the collective energy. In the Vajrayana school, the three roots support the three jewels. They are the Guru, the root of blessing, the Yidam, the root of methods, and the Dakini or Dharmapala is the root of protection. As I've explained earlier, they support the practice, but they become the body, speech, and mind. That is the Sangha, the Dharma, and the Buddha of the Buddha. So, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says the three roots are in fact not different from the three gems. The Guru is the Buddha, the Lama is the Buddha, the Yidam is the Dharma, and the Dakinis and protectors are the Sangha. And on the innermost level, the Dharmakaya is the Buddha, the Sambhogakaya is the Dharma, and the Nirmanakaya is the Sangha. What are these? The Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya are the three modes of existence of the Buddha. The Dharmakaya is the unmanifested mode, that is the body of Dharma, the reality, the truth, the supreme state of absolute knowledge, emptiness. It is beyond the physical form. The Sambhogakaya is the mode of divine blissfulness, the enjoyment body. This is a state that arises when you are progressing on your spiritual journey. The signs of reward, of the sadhana, of the practice, of the tapasya. And the Nirmanakaya, or the transformation body, is the manifested mode as a living symbol of the Buddhahood. Right? So it's either one of the Buddhas, a lotus, a trishul, a flame. The Vietnamese Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, says, when we say, I take refuge in the Buddha, we should understand that the Buddha also takes refuge in you. Because without the second part, the first part is not complete. There is an equality. Okay? There is a oneness. And there's a fundamental belief in that oneness when you take refuge. The Buddha needs us for awakening, understanding, and love to be real things and not just concepts, he says. And he says there must be real things that have real effects on life. So when I take refuge in the Buddha, I hear Buddha takes refuge in me. I'll leave you with those words, and I hope you're enjoying the lessons. Please do comment, share, subscribe, and write to me if you have any questions. And I hope you'll come back next week for lesson